Godzilla 2014. About a year ago, this movie turned 10 years old. And to celebrate that, we are going to be doing a review video on this. In today's video, I want to discuss a few different things. One, of course, being the plot and the monsters. Basically the impact the movie has had on film and Godzilla in general, and of course my overall opinion on it. So without further ado, let's get started. And I suppose since I mentioned it first in that little introduction, let's talk about the plot. So the film takes place in the year it released, 2014, and in this year, at least in the MonsterVerse universe, it's the day that the world would learn that monsters are real. Speaking of the monsters, there are only a couple of them. And this movie's primary antagonists, the Mutos, are trying to come together and breed and basically repopulate the planet with more Mutos and change it to their liking. And, of course, it's the military's job to make sure that these giant monsters don't take over the planet, with some help from Godzilla, of course. Even if Godzilla's only really in this movie for like 10 minutes. That's it. It's a very generic plot about saving the world from giant monsters. Now, the movie is very centered around the humans, which is a thing that apparently a lot of people hate about the movie. Personally, I don't mind, because if you've seen a lot of the classic Toho movies, you'll know that Godzilla not getting a lot of screen time is nothing new. And speaking of humans, the camera work, the cinematography in this movie is absolutely incredible. Like, it makes you feel like you're one of the people, like, standing there witnessing all this happen. Gareth Edwards, which, because of this movie, has become my favorite director of all time, is really, really good at showing the true scale of these monsters. It really makes you feel tiny in comparison, which is something that, in my opinion, all the later MonsterVerse films fail to do. And speaking of Gareth Edwards, he is actually, I think he's confirmed now to be the director of the next Jurassic movie, which is gonna be awesome. I hope he does something, a directing style similar to Godzilla 2014. I want it to feel like these dinosaurs are truly huge in comparison to us. Anyway, away from Jurassic Park, let's head back to Godzilla. Let's talk about the CGI. The CGI in this film is incredible. And I mean incredible. Like, this is better than, in my opinion, most movies nowadays. I don't know how you have a $200 million budget and fail to make good CGI. Which, luckily, wasn't the case for this one. The CGI is incredibly lifelike. It is way better than the MonsterVerse films nowadays. Not to say that the MonsterVerse CGI now is bad. Obviously, we know that Godzilla Kong dedicated a whole lot of time to the monsters, which is why the CGI is pretty iffy in a lot of scenes. Even then, it still looks really good. That's not me trying to hate on the new MonsterVerse films, because I absolutely love everything Godzilla. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the overall movie itself. So now let's segue into the monsters, which is what we're all here to see. As I said earlier, we really only get a handful of monsters. Technically it's only two, but if you want to split the two sexes of the Mutos into different species, then we have three. So let's talk about the Mutos first. The Mutos, we have two of them. The male one, which is called the Hawk Muto, it has wings and stands at about 200 feet tall, if I can remember correctly. And in the movie, it was found in the Philippines, and it was still in an egg, and then they brought it into this evacuated city, which I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure that the Muto, which is the female one, is who brought that nuclear power plant down. I'm not entirely sure of that. I think that's what it is, though. But yeah, this creature, it breaks out of its egg and basically escapes to find the female in order to breed. And then, speaking of the female is much larger at 300 feet tall, and it does not have wings. It cannot fly. However, it is capable of emitting an EMP that has a 5-mile radius. I know the male Muto can also emit an EMP, However, in the movie, I'm pretty sure they never state how big it is, whether or not it's the same as the females or bigger or weaker. And then, of course, we have the main man himself, the Big G, the king of the monsters, Godzilla. Even though he doesn't get a whole lot of screen time, when he does show up, it's incredible. And when it comes to the design of this Godzilla, unlike some former American Godzilla movies, yeah, we haven't forgot about you. How does it feel? So yeah, as I was saying, unlike some former American Godzilla movies, this one is actually faithful to the original design, and it just looks like pretty much a modernized version of what you would see in the old Toho movies. However, despite it being a whole lot more faithful than 1998, it does definitely still have a ton of creative liberties done to it to show that it really is different. Like, for starters, normally in Toho movies, Godzilla's tail is incredibly blunt at the tip. In this movie, Godzilla's tail is really sharp and whip-like, pointy at the end, really. He also has incredibly jagged dorsal plates, whereas normally he has those maple leaf-shaped ones. However, in King of the Monsters, which is the sequel to Godzilla 2014, Michael Dougherty did decide to give Godzilla the blunt tail and the maple-shaped dorsal plates, like the Toho films. Godzilla also has incredibly large feet, similar to that of many sauropods, or elephants, sort of. And my favorite thing that they added to this Godzilla was they gave him gills, because Godzilla is a primarily aquatic creature. He lives underwater. However, he does obviously come on land a lot to destroy Tokyo and fend off giant monsters. And these gills really give him that aquatic feel, so that way he can actually breathe underwater. This Godzilla's roar is also amazing. It's one of the best roars for the creature that's ever existed. And I like that they didn't just rehash and reuse basically all the old roars from the Toho films. I like that they made their own, and it sounds incredibly good. However, Legendary has not revealed what they did to make this roar, so we'll never truly know what Godzilla is composed of. And then, of course, I have to talk about it. The atomic breath scene is... it's awesome. It is the best thing in the entire movie, which is the glowing light as the Muto is about to basically kill Ford. Like, the just slow build-up of his back just getting more and more blue until it reaches his head, and then all the flames just burst out. It is awesome. And then the kiss of death also at the end. That's even cooler. However, the reveal can't be beat, even if the kiss of death is overall cooler. And that's all I have to say about the monsters of this movie. So now let's get into why this movie is so important. Alright, so let's go back in time to 2004. This year was Godzilla's 50th anniversary, and Toho was finally ready to let the big guy retire. But before that, they were gonna go out with a bang. Godzilla Final Wars was released. This movie had Godzilla fighting every single monster he had encountered up until this point. Even a very poorly made Zilla. So they made this movie. I absolutely loved it. And that was it. That was their plan. Was Godzilla was gonna be done after this movie. In fact, after this movie, Godzilla even got his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. And then, that was it. Nothing Godzilla happened until 2014, when Legendary, an American movie studio, got the rights to Godzilla, and they made their own. And this reawakened Godzilla, essentially. Godzilla was basically dead for 10 years up until this point, and then this movie brought him back into the public's eye. It got him popular again. And because of this, because he got so popular again, this is what, gave Toho the boost they needed to start making more of their own Godzilla movies, along with Legendary making their own in America. So to all those people who say -1 good MonsterVerse bad, just know -1 would probably not exist if it weren't for the MonsterVerse. And this Godzilla movie is genuinely probably the reason why I love Godzilla. While he was not my introduction, that was you, unfortunately. It was 2014 that really made me love Godzilla. And then, of course, a couple of years later in 2019, when King of the Monsters came out, that was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw in theaters. And then I started getting into the history of Godzilla. I watched the first Japanese ones I ever watched were Godzilla Final Wars and Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. And then when Godzilla vs. Kong came out in 2021, I decided that, you know what, I should probably watch the original King Kong vs. Godzilla to see basically how this all started. And then that's where I went down and started watching a lot of the Japanese ones, and now Japanese Godzilla movies. I'm about to lose all my subscribers for this sentence, but I'm going to say it anyway. Godzilla is better than Jurassic Park. I'm sorry. So basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is that this movie is easily one of the most important Godzilla movies ever made. It really bring in a younger audience, including me, into this whole community of Godzilla. So, in general, my thoughts are this is an incredible movie. In fact, I'd even go so far as to say it's my favorite movie. Not because it has the best plot in the world, not because it has the best characters, which it does not. The characters, the human characters at least, genuinely suck. But because of the fact that this basically made me fall in love with Godzilla. It's why I love the creature today. And for that, I have to thank it. 2014 is the reason I love this movie, and this movie, and this one. Hey, even that one. I love this one too. This one's also pretty good. They're just all great. Every Godzilla movie is great. Kind of. Most of them are, except for you. Most of them are good, though. And it's this movie that introduced me to this whole film franchise, and that's why I love it. So overall, I'm going to have to give Godzilla 2014 a 10 out of 10. But if you've seen the movie at least, what are your guys' thoughts on 2014? Is it truly as good as I'm saying it to be, or am I being blinded by nostalgia? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know. And if you'd like to see me review more Godzilla movies, also please let me know. Until then, I'll see you in the next video.